So here I am playing FIFA 12, picturing myself in 2011 again. I really miss that 7th gen era of gaming where it felt like video games were evolving, graphics were evolving, technology used for video game was evolving. A lot of the games that I remember playing on the PlayStation 2, they had variants of the PlayStation 3. Like, for example, I'm thinking the Ultimate Ninja series, the EA FIFA series, WWE. Actually, WWE didn't change a whole lot, to be honest. Uh, but yeah, I remember a lot of those games from that era. Like, they really did feel. By the way, if you're not hearing any sound, it's because this game has fucking copyrighted music, so there's no way I'm gonna play this game with full audio. Don't even want to test that. I don't know why this game looks super bright right now. Looks a lot brighter than usual. Let me try again. Yeah, this sun is really bright. For fuck's sake, EA. I don't remember they being this bright on the actual original. Oh, sorry. What do you? Sorry, I almost slipped there. Of course, I'm playing this on original hardware. I would, I always play things on original hardware. I would never emulate things, obviously. But yeah, you know, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of like recently there's like we've been seeing more and more games that have like mandatory fucking ray tracing, in which the game comes built in with like ray tracing by default and you can't really disable that. And then I remember watching this one video from a YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I forgot the name, but basically he showed an example of a game that it was Spider-Man 2, in which Spider-Man 2, if you actually disable ray tracing, like the game basically just looks almost shadowless. Like in the original, like the 2018 Spider-Man game, I think even on the PC port, if you disable ray tracing, it'll still have like pretty decent real-time shadows and stuff like that. But it seems like with Spider-Man 2, if you disable ray tracing, that shit looks fucking dead. Like the city looks dead for some reason. And so yeah, it feels like nowadays a lot of games are starting to kind of have mandatory ray tracing. And the thing is, I'll be completely fucking honest with you. Uh, this is just my personal opinion, my hot take. Maybe it's not even a hot take. Maybe everyone agrees with me, but like I think ray tracing is overrated trash technology for gaming. I think ray tracing is great if you're using it for a fucking tech demo. I think that if you're using it for animated movies, I think ray tracing is I think ray tracing in general, I think is an amazing technology. But I don't think it's good for gaming. I just think it's way too taxing. And I think that the end result you end up seeing with ray tracing is not necessarily something that you can't replicate with more traditional rendering techniques. Like I'm thinking of, for example, this era of video games. Like what I'm seeing here right now, I knew for a fact that the PlayStation 2 wasn't able to. Well, actually, maybe I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. This level of fucking graphics, this level of detail, stuff like that. I just could never imagine the PlayStation 2 be able to do this. Uh, you really did. You really did feel like things were evolving back then, and I feel like this era, like the night gen, um, it feels to me like they're trying to push ray tracing and like I don't know. I, I've said this before. Like I don't mind the PS5. I like the PS5. I like the console. I think that as a gaming device, I couldn't ask for more. It's a pretty solid device, pretty snappy. It's able to play PlayStation 4 games. In most instances, you're getting a better experience compared to playing it on original PlayStation 4. There are some games that even come with PlayStation 5 builds that you can upgrade. Those are the cross-gen games, and you're able to get an even better experience. And if you're to play the PlayStation 4 Pro Enhanced version, and so uh, there's a lot of like there's a lot of reasons for why I also recording. You can record footage, stream footage at 60 FPS 1080p, while on the PlayStation 4 you could only record it to 720p 30 FPS, Which, granted, I think that back then when I was able to do that, that to me felt pretty revolutionary because I remember back when I did have a PlayStation 3, as a matter of fact. I remember watching a lot of YouTubers that were, they were fucking uploading videos, uploading gameplay footage, and they had capture cards. And back then, I didn't have capture cards available to me. It wasn't available in any store back in where I live, and it was also very expensive. And so I never, I could, I the concept of recording gameplay footage felt like a dream to me, if I'm being honest. And so the PlayStation 4 being able to do that felt very special to me. And now with the PS5, you're able to get an even higher resolution at higher frame rates, which I think is really cool. And there's a couple of quality of life improvements that you get for the PS5 that I don't want to take away from it. I genuinely do enjoy the console. I like it. I like it for what it is. I think it was worth the money. Well, maybe not necessarily worth the money because I did buy that sculpt, but had I bought that for 500 euros, which was what it was priced back then, it was definitely be a solid purchase. Until this day, I don't regret buying the PS5, but I would say that in terms of generational improvements, generational uplifts, this definitely feels like that I actually, man, free kicks back then were a lot easier compared to now. But anyway, I keep fucking pressing start for some reason. Uh, that's not the button to skip. But anyway, I feel like with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X, they're mainly advertising. I'd say two things. One is playing games at 60 FPS, which not that you couldn't play games at 60 FPS on older consoles, but games back then they weren't really targeting those frame rates, and I guess now they were because now they had a better processor. And uh, other than that, I guess also 4K. But I think it was mainly just ray tracing. Ray tracing was kind of the marketing gimmick that they were using to hype up these consoles. And I feel like that's kind of one of the main reasons for why you are seeing these like mandatory ray tracing, where a lot of developers are really pushing for ray tracing to be implemented into their games, despite the fact that in general, again, I don't think ray tracing does anything that technologies like Lumen, post processing, even some reshader mods are able to do. If I'm being completely honest, like the games that people tend to show, like fucking Cyberpunk or Alan Wake 2, and I'm just like, dog, go to Nexus Mod. You will literally find a ultra realistic fucking mod pack for Cyberpunk that doesn't even require ray tracing. Now, if you enable more specifically path tracing, if you enable path tracing, um, it will look better, but you definitely don't need that. Like that mod pack will work regardless if you have path tracing enabled. And I would say that that does much more to actually make the game look realistic than actual path tracing that will absolutely fucking tank your GPU. Like unapologetically, it will tank your GPU. Like if I was playing Cyberpunk, I would never enable path tracing. If I was playing Alan Wake 2, I would never enable path tracing because they're too expensive. And yeah, sure, you are getting it does look better, but like, do I care that much about graphics? Like, is graphics really that fucking important to me that I'm willing to tank my experience this hard? Not really. And to be honest with you, I don't really care. Like I feel like these console manufacturers, I feel like they care more about, and not just console manufacturers, I think also consumers to some degree. I think a lot of people, not just with PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X, and also with a lot of the GPUs that they buy specifically from Nvidia, where I feel like a lot of people they got into the ray tracing hype and they bought a lot of the RTX cards with the expectation that hey, these cards, especially compared to AMD cards, they're the best options for ray tracing. Look at this fucking cutting edge piece of technology. Um, man, I'm getting scored to death. It's been a while since I've played this game, so fuck it. I know I'm gonna lose. I don't really care. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people got into the whole ray tracing hype, and they're in a way they've sort of been waiting for the opportunity where the actual ray tracing accelerators on these consoles that they were promised actually are useful. And I guess mandatory ray tracing games is when this actually starts feeling useful, because now you don't have a choice. You don't even have a choice to disable ray tracing. You have to keep it on. And so now, whichever GPU you bought specifically because it had better ray tracing performance, now it starts to pay off. But to me personally, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about this stuff. I don't care about ray tracing. Ray tracing doesn't improve my experience. Like, and to be honest with you, if we're gonna start seeing games that have like mandatory ray tracing, and they have ray tracing that's so unapologetically expensive to your hardware that you literally have to have like the fucking state of the art GPU, it's gonna get to a point where I'm not even sure if I even want to play games on PC. Because at least if I buy games on consoles, a lot of the times the developers, they will target the builds that they release for consoles for that specific on that singular console hardware permutation that these consoles typically have. I guess now with the PlayStation 5 you will also have the PlayStation 5 Pro. But even then, like, the base PS5 is still generally going to be the primary console that these game developers will design their game for. It's the hardware permutation that they will primarily target. And so as long as they're able to provide like a 60 FPS experience, ray tracing or no ray tracing, if they're able to guarantee that, then honestly it might get to a point where maybe I'll just end up primarily playing on consoles. If me playing PC games is gonna be a battle of, oh, which fucking overly expensive GPU you have that has ray tracing on the fucking box, because it has to have in order to run games, all for the sake of running this piece of technology that I don't actually think even improves that significantly the quality of games. In fact, sometimes it can actually make the visual looks worse with things like the fucking the classic ray tracing noise, where the image might actually look noisier when you enable ray tracing, which can sometimes also be made worse by the fact that a lot of times when people use ray tracing or path tracing, they have to add that with a bunch of fucking upscalers and TAA solutions that aren't as computationally expensive. And yeah, it just ends up making the image even noisier and blurry. And so it gets to a point where I'm just like, oh, so this is the current, this is what currently defines ninth gen. I've already talked about this, if I'm being honest. Like, this is me just kind of repeating fucking shit that I've been spewing for years. Uh, Maybe not publicly, but at least in my mind. And so I don't know. I just wish, I honestly wish game developers just kind of, you know, yeah. I'm just gonna pause this for a second because I really want to like say this out loud. Well, maybe not out loud because it's night, but I wish game developers just took a step back and realize, let's look at the technology that we're using. What does it actually matter? Because I know what matters for me: art style, gameplay, frame rate. Do I need do I need things like, mesh shaders, or you know do I need to like absolutely fully fucking utilize the, well, I guess maybe the SSD depends on the game, but for example, are there really not ways that I can optimize this game to not have to utilize so much VRAM? Is it Do I need to use Unreal Engine 5 in such a way where, hardware that worked just fine even 2 years ago suddenly can't handle this game? Like, is that really what matters? Like, can't we just go back to the basics? Can't we just go back to the PlayStation 4 era, 8th gen? That's when things peaked, man. I don't know. I just have these thoughts because, gaming is getting more expensive. It's becoming a much more expensive hobby. And I don't know. I've said this before where, you know, I am someone that likes collecting physical copies of video games, and I can see myself doing that for older games for the rest of my life. And if I run out of games to collect, I'll just start collecting movies and television shows and anime and shit like that, and music, which is something I also do. And I would say that in those industries, I've done even less to actually collect that stuff, and so I have tons of material to actually fucking collect and buy. So it's not that I don't see myself abandoning gaming if it's going in a direction that I don't like. So, but I don't know. I'm just one guy. Obviously, the entire industry isn't gonna listen to my cries. They're just gonna continue propagating the, I would say, problematic trends that they've been pushing towards. But yeah. Anyway, I was losing 4-0. Very embarrassing. And I think that's all. Goodbye.